Year 3 and welcome to lesson 1 this week of our reading. We're on to chapter 5, Robin and the Potter, in our Robin Hood story, and our learning objective is to explore the author's use of adjectives for a new character. So if you just take a moment to write down the date and the learning objective in your book, which is on the screen, and then we'll continue and catch up. Have a little recap of what happened last week. Okay. Moving on, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so let's try and answer these 3 questions then. I'll give you a moment to go through it. It says, where is the Potter? Then it asks you to describe the setting. Remember, we're in that busy marketplace at the moment, inside Nottingham, in the gates of Nottingham. And finally, a define question. What are traders and what do they do? Take a moment to try and answer those questions, and then we'll check your answers in 3, 2, 1, now. Okay, well, in actual fact, we don't know where the Potter is at the moment. Robin is in the market square, disguised as the Potter, trying to get as close to the sheriff as he can, because it's part of his plan. What's his plan? Well, we're going to find out, and we're going to keep reading on. But, describing the setting, the market square is busy with lots of traders selling goods from their stalls, and crowds of people are surrounding the Potter because he has very good pots and prices. And finally, a trader is a person who buys and sells things as well. Okay, well done for having a go at those. Let's have a look at our vocabulary for today. Well, our vocabulary. We have a potter. So a potter is a person who makes pots, dishes and mugs from clay. So that's what the Potter was doing there. He was buying and selling these things that he'd made. Parted. So if you're parted, you're moved away from each other. So parted. Humble. So if you behave in a humble way, that's to behave politely. So it's the opposite of boasting. If I was to be humble if I won a game, that would be the opposite of boasting if I won a game. So it's polite to be humble. Commotion. Commotion means a lot of noise or action. Insolence. So if you show insolence, you're being rude or disrespectful, and it's not good behaviour. And finally, snarled. So if you snarl, you say something in an angry or bad-tempered voice. So snarled the sheriff, you might see on these next few pages. Okay, what are we going to do with these words then? Well, we're going to try and write some sentences of our own. You can do it with 3 of the words, but if you can do it with any more than 3, then well done in the time that we have. Okay, so any of those red words we're going to put into sentences about Robin Hood and make our own ones up using that new vocabulary that we just learned. So pause the video now and use those words to write your 3 sentences. I'll move on to show you one of my own in 3, 2, 1. Okay, I've got 2 different sentences here and I've used 3 of the words. So I've got the crowd parted in fear as the sheriff walked down the steps and into the marketplace. And my second one, the sheriff snarled at the insolence of the traders because he was not impressed with the prices they offered. Okay, so that's another way as well. You can sometimes fit more than one word into one sentence. You can use a few of them. Okay, well done for having a go at those, and I hope that we recognise that new vocabulary in the next part of the story that we're reading today. Okay, turn to page 34. I'm going to finish off the last section of page 34 before I move on to our new reading today. A crowd quickly gathered. His pots were good, and the price he asked was so much less than they were worth that he soon only had a dozen pots left. Suddenly, the great door above him opened, and down the steps came Dame Margaret, the sheriff's wife, with her serving girl. Attracted by the noise, she made for the crowd around the potter's stall. They parted respectfully to let her through. The potter swept off his cap and bowed low to her. "Madam," he said, "a poor potter would be honoured if so fair a lady would accept as a humble gift these last 12 pots of mine." "Why, good Master Potter," she said, with a surprised but friendly smile, "I thank you. These are fine and well-made pots, among the best I have seen." "Only the best would be good enough for you, my lady," said the potter. Dame Margaret smiled again. "Next time I must pay you for your pots. You must be sure to let me know when you come to Nottingham again," she said. "Until then, may I repay you by asking you to eat with my Lord Sheriff and me? The day's first meal is about to be served." So the potter found himself seated at the table next to the sheriff and in company with 20 other guests or important members of the household. The meal had hardly begun when there was a great commotion at the door. The sheriff, a thin, mean-looking man, glanced up from his plate to see the cause of the disturbance. "Can I not eat in peace?" he called out irritably. "A rough fellow is trying to force his way in, my lord," replied a serving man who had run up. "He says he must speak with you." The sheriff pushed his meat away and speared an apple on his knife point. "Must is not a word you to use to me when I'm eating. Throw the rogue out and whip him for his insolence," he snarled. And look, there we are, in the castle, eating the first meal of the day. There's the man who's telling the sheriff, the serving man, that there's someone at the door who wants to speak to him. And here is the sheriff here. How do we know he's the sheriff? That's because he's wearing expensive clothes and he's right in the middle. There'd be his wife. And who do you think this is here? That's right, it's the potter. The potter is sat right next to the sheriff. Interesting. Okay. Let's answer some questions then. We've got a retrieve, an explore, predict, and a define question. Let's have a look at what they are. I'll read through the questions and then you'll have to pause the video and try your best in your books to answer those questions before we check our answers. So, why did the sheriff's wife come to the potter's stall? How did the sheriff's wife repay the potter's kindness? Which adjectives describe the sheriff? What else does the author do to tell us about his character? Who is this rough fellow trying to force his way in? Make a prediction. And finally, what does insolence mean? That was one of our words earlier in our vocabulary. Okay, pause the video now, give those questions a try, and once you're ready, we'll check through the answers together. We'll check the answers in 3, 2, 1. Okay, just have a read through those, and if you need to add anything, or if yours is the same as mine, excellent. Let's have a look through. Okay, yeah, the sheriff's wife came to the stall because she was attracted by the noise. The potter was invited to eat in the castle with the important people. The sheriff was described as thin, mean-looking, and he speared the apple with his knife point, and he told the serving man to throw the rogue out and whip him for his insolence. That shows that he thinks he's more important than anybody. And I think that the rough fellow might be Richard Malbeat, because remember, he was trying to get back from the fight that he had with Robin Hood in the forest. And insolence, as we know, means disrespectful and rude behaviour. Let's move on. So I'm going to leave you with these now. We have a predict question. It says, what do you think Robin's plan is now that he is inside the castle, and why? And then finally it says, infer from the picture So that was the picture that we saw in the castle. What is the mood in the castle around the sheriff's table? How do you think people are feeling? Okay, pause the video now and have a go at those before we move on to our final slide. We'll move on in 3, 2, 1. Okay, this is our last bit then. So today we've covered the retrieve, explore, predict, define and infer reading gem. Great work. I'll leave you with one task if you have time to do it. It's to draw a battle plan for Robin now that he is in the castle. Be sure to include maps and pictures because he's going to have to be very careful to stop the sheriff from suspecting anything, that he in fact is Robin Hood and not a Potter at all. Okay, so next time we'll continue our adventure, so be sure to tune in tomorrow for some more reading.